I stood in my driveway on a Saturday morning, the taste of blood filling my mouth, as my father lowered his hand from where it had just struck me across the face. The slap echoed down the quiet suburban street. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed over her chest, her face twisted with indignation. In their car, my younger brother Derek sat in the back seat, his phone pointed at me, recording everything with a smirk plastered across his face. They had just demanded I sign over the deed to my house, the house I had saved for 6 years to buy, the house I had worked 70-hour weeks to afford. And when I refused, my father hit me in front of my neighbors. My cheek burned, but I did not move. I did not flinch. I simply stared back at them and tasted my own blood. 3 months before that slap, my life looked completely different. I was Louis Brennan, 32 years old, a senior project manager for a mid-sized construction company in Portland, Oregon. I had worked my way up from being a laborer on job sites when I was 19, putting myself through community college one night class at a time while my body ached from 10-hour days pouring concrete and framing walls. Nobody handed me anything. That was just how it was for me. My parents, Robert and Susan Brennan, had 2 sons, me and Derek. Derek was 5 years younger, and from the moment he was born, the sun rose and set on him. I do not say that with bitterness now, just clarity. It took me years to see it for what it was. When I was in high school, I worked weekends at a hardware store to buy my own car, a beat-up Ford Ranger that burned oil and needed new brakes every 6 months. Derek got a brand new Honda Civic for his 16th birthday, paid in full by our parents. I paid my way through community college, taking out small loans and working full-time. Derek got accepted to Portland State University, and our parents covered his tuition, his apartment, his meal plan, and gave him $500 a month for expenses. I never complained. I figured that was just how things were. Maybe they had more money when Derek came along. Maybe I was supposed to be more independent. I told myself those stories for years. By the time I turned 27, I had saved $70,000 for a down payment on a house. It took me 6 years of living in a tiny studio apartment, driving that same old truck, packing my lunch every single day, and skipping vacations. I found a modest 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in a working-class neighborhood on the east side of Portland. It was nothing fancy. Built in 1978, it had carpet that needed replacing, and a kitchen that still had the original laminate countertops. But it had a small backyard, a 1-car garage, and it was mine. The purchase price was $275,000. After my down payment, I had a mortgage of $190,000. I was so proud the day I got the keys that I sat in the empty living room and cried. That was 5 years ago. I had worked hard to make that house a home. I replaced the carpet myself, learned how to install new light fixtures from YouTube videos, painted every room, and built a deck in the backyard with my own hands. My girlfriend, Amanda, a nurse at the local hospital, had been with me for 2 years. She loved that house as much as I did. We talked about getting married, about starting a family there. I could see our whole future in those rooms. Derek, meanwhile, was 27 and still living with our parents. He had gone through 8 different jobs in 5 years, mostly sales positions that he would quit after a few months because he did not like the hours or the manager or the commute. Our parents supported him the whole time, never pushing him to stand on his own. I visited for holidays, kept things cordial, but I had learned to keep my distance. There was always an undercurrent of judgment from them. I was not successful enough, not attentive enough, not grateful enough. It was easier to just show up for Thanksgiving and Christmas and keep the rest of my life separate. Then, 3 months before the slap, I got a phone call from my mother on a Tuesday evening. I was just getting home from a job site, tired and covered in dust. Her voice was bright and excited. "Louis, honey, your father and I have some big news. We want to have a family dinner this Sunday, both you and Derek. Something we need to tell you both together." I felt a knot form in my stomach, the way it always did when my parents wanted to gather us together. But I agreed. Amanda came with me that Sunday to an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. When we arrived, my parents were already seated with Derek. They were dressed nicely, like they were celebrating something. Derek had that grin on his face, the one he always wore when he knew something I did not. We ordered appetizers, My father, a tall man with graying hair and a voice that always sounded like he was giving orders, cleared his throat and raised his water glass. "Your mother and I have made a big decision," he announced. "We sold the house." I felt Amanda's hand tighten around mine under the table. The house, the four-bedroom colonial where I grew up, the house they had owned for 32 years in a nice neighborhood near the river. "We got $1,100,000 for it," my mother added, beaming. "Can you believe it? We bought it for $110,000 back in 1991. I smiled, genuinely happy for them. "That is amazing. Congratulations. So where are you two planning to retire?" "Somewhere warm." My parents exchanged a glance. Derek's grin widened. "Well," my father said slowly, "we decided to invest in Derek's future. We bought him a house." The restaurant noise seemed to fade into the background. I heard the words, but they took a moment to land. "You bought Derek a house," I repeated. "A beautiful 4-bedroom in West Hills." My mother gushed. "You should see it, Louis. Vaulted ceilings, a gourmet kitchen with granite countertops, mountain views from the master bedroom, and a 3-car garage. It cost $900,000. We paid for it outright. The title is in Derek's name." I sat there, a piece of bread halfway to my mouth, trying to process what I was hearing. $900,000. Almost everything they had made from selling their home. Given to Derek. "Derek has struggled to find his footing," my father continued, his tone defensive before I had even said anything. "He deserves a strong start, a stable foundation. He is going to do great things, and he needed this." Derek jumped in, describing the house in detail. The heated floors in the bathrooms, the walk-in closets, the landscaped yard with a built-in barbecue area. He pulled out his phone and started showing us pictures. Amanda's grip on my hand was almost painful now. I finally found my voice. "What about you two? Where are you going to live?" My mother's smile flickered just slightly. "Well, after the down payment and closing costs, we have about $150,000 left. We will find something small, maybe a condo. We are downsizing anyway." The weight of it settled on me like a heavy blanket. They had given almost everything to Derek. Everything they had built over 3 decades, handed to my younger brother who had never held down a job for more than a year. And what about me? The question came out quieter than I intended. My father's face hardened, his jaw tightened. "You already have a house, Louis. You are doing fine. You have a good job. You do not need help. Derek needed this." The waitress brought our entrees. I could not eat, Amanda whispered to me, asking if I was okay. I nodded, but I was not okay. I was trying to understand how my parents could give away $900,000 to one son and not even mention the other. As we finished the meal in awkward silence, my mother added, almost as an afterthought, "Actually, Louis, we were hoping we could stay with you for a little while, just temporarily, while we look for a place. You have that extra bedroom, and it would only be a few months." And there it was. They had given everything to Derek, and now they wanted to move into my house, the house I had worked myself to the bone to afford. I looked at my mother, then at my father, then at Derek, who was still scrolling through photos of his new house. "No," I said simply. "Amanda and I are planning our future. We need our space." My father's face turned red. He set down his fork with a sharp clink. "That is incredibly selfish, Louis. We raised you," my mother added, her voice rising. "We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us." I stood up, pulling out my wallet and throwing cash on the table for my portion of the meal. Amanda stood with me. "You just gave Derek $900,000, I said quietly. "You made your choice about who you invest in. I am not being selfish for protecting what I have built on my own." We left the restaurant. The ride home was silent, except for Amanda's occasional reassuring touches on my arm. When we got back to my house, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for an hour. Amanda made tea and sat with me, not saying anything, just being there. That dinner was 6 weeks before the slap. I did not know then just how much worse things were about to get. The weeks after that dinner were a slow burn of tension that I tried to ignore. I threw myself into work, managing a commercial building renovation downtown that required constant problem-solving and long hours on site. It was easier to focus on concrete and steel than to think about my family. Amanda was furious on my behalf. She had always been protective, and seeing how my parents treated me ignited something in her. "They have always used you," she said one night as we cooked dinner together. "You know that, right? You are the responsible one, so they can baby Derek forever. And when you set a boundary, you are the bad guy." I knew she was right, but knowing it and accepting it were two different things. Derek moved into his new house 3 weeks after that dinner. I knew because he posted photos all over social media. The grand entry with the chandelier, the chef's kitchen, the master suite with the spa bathroom. Every post felt like a slap in the face, but I refused to look at them after the first few. I unfollowed him. My parents started texting me. At first, they were angry messages. My mother sent long paragraphs about how disappointed she was in me, how I had turned my back on family, how I was being cruel and selfish. My father sent shorter, sharper messages, calling me ungrateful and telling me I owed them everything I had. I did not respond. What was there to say? After 2 weeks of messages, I blocked their numbers. I needed peace. I needed to focus on my life, my work, my relationship with Amanda. I could not carry their anger anymore. At work, things were going well. My boss, a straightforward man named Gary who had worked construction for 40 years, noticed I was distracted during a site meeting. Afterward, he pulled me aside. "You okay, Louis? You are not yourself lately." I hesitated, then gave him the basics. I did not go into all the details, just that my parents had given my brother a massive gift and were now upset that I would not house them. Gary shook his head. "Family can be tough. My brother did not talk to me for 10 years over an inheritance issue. But you cannot let their problems become yours. You have worked too hard." A week later, Gary called me into his office and told me he was promoting me to senior project manager. It came with a $15,000 raise and more responsibility. I would be overseeing multiple projects and managing a team of 6 people. I called Amanda from the parking lot, and she screamed with excitement. We went out to dinner that night to celebrate at a small steakhouse we loved. For the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely happy. I was building something real. I was moving forward. I told Amanda I wanted to propose to her at Christmas, which was 3 months away. I had already been looking at rings. She cried and kissed me and said she could not wait. For a few weeks, life felt normal again. I had blocked my parents, work was going great, and Amanda and I were planning our future. I let myself believe that maybe the worst was over. Maybe my parents would calm down, find their condo, and we could all move on with our lives at a healthy distance. I should have known better. It was a Thursday evening in early October when I got home from work around 6:30. The sun was setting, casting orange light across my neighborhood. I turned onto my street and immediately saw my parents' car in my driveway. My stomach dropped. I parked on the street and walked up slowly. My mother and father were sitting on my front porch. Suitcases were stacked beside them, 4 large suitcases and several bags. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. My mother stood up, her face a mix of desperation and defiance. "We could not find anywhere to live, Louis. Everything in our budget is either too far away or in terrible neighborhoods. We have been staying in motels for the last 2 weeks. We cannot keep doing this. We are moving in with you." It was not a question. It was a statement. "No," I said. "I already told you no." My father stood up, his face already red. "We are your parents, Louis. You do not get to say no to us. We need help, and you are going to provide it. You gave Derek $900,000. I said, my voice rising. "You gave him a mansion. You made a choice about where your resources went. I cannot fix that for you." "This is different," my mother snapped. "Derek is young. He needs that house. You are established. You have space. This is what family does." Neighbors were starting to come out of their houses. Old Bill across the street was pretending to check his mailbox, but was clearly watching. The couple next door was on their porch with their dog. "Amanda and I are planning our life here," I said. "This is our home. You need to leave." My father stepped closer to me, his finger jabbing toward my chest. "How dare you speak to us this way? After everything we have done for you, after we raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. And I have thanked you," I said. But I do not owe you my house. I do not owe you my future. You made decisions, and those decisions have consequences. My mother started crying, loud, theatrical sobs. We have nowhere to go, Louis. Are you really going to let your parents be homeless? I felt the guilt rising in my chest, the old familiar pattern trying to pull me back in. But then I thought about Amanda, about the life we were building, about the years I had spent saving and working and sacrificing to create something stable. You have $150,000, I said. That is more than enough to find a place. You are not homeless. You are just not getting what you want. My father's face contorted with rage. You are not the son I raised. You are selfish and heartless. Then I guess you did not raise me at all, I said. I raised myself. Now get off my property. They stood there for a long moment, my mother crying, my father glaring at me with pure hatred. Finally, they grabbed their suitcases and threw them into their car. My mother shouted from the passenger window as they pulled away. You will regret this, Louis. You will regret treating us this way. I stood in my driveway as they drove off, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. Amanda came running out of the house. I had not even realized she was home. I heard everything from inside, she said, wrapping her arms around me. You did the right thing. You did the right thing. I held on to her and tried to believe that. But as I looked at my neighbors slowly going back inside their houses, I felt exposed and raw. My parents had just tried to force their way into my life, into my home, and when I resisted, they had tried to shame me in front of everyone. That was 2 weeks before the slap. I thought that confrontation was the worst it could get. I was wrong. The next 2 weeks passed in tense silence. I heard nothing from my parents, nothing from Derek. I tried to focus on work, on Amanda, on our plans. We went ring shopping together on a Saturday afternoon, and I bought a simple but beautiful diamond ring that made her cry when she tried it on. The jeweler said it would be ready for pickup in early December. Perfect timing for a Christmas proposal. Work was demanding but rewarding. I was managing 3 projects simultaneously, and my team was performing well. Gary had started talking about me potentially becoming a partner in the company within 5 years if I kept up the good work. My life was moving forward, but there was an unease I could not shake, like waiting for a storm that I knew was coming but could not see yet. It arrived on a Saturday morning in late October. I was doing yard work, raking leaves in my front yard and clearing out the flower beds for winter. It was one of those perfect fall mornings, crisp and clear, the kind that makes you grateful to be alive. Amanda was inside making lunch, and I could smell something delicious cooking through the open kitchen window. At 11:30, my parents' car pulled up to the curb. My stomach clenched, but this time, Derek was with them. He got out of the back seat, his expression unreadable. My parents approached me, and my father was holding papers in his hand. Louis, my father said, his tone formal and cold. We need to talk. I set down my rake and crossed my arms. About what? We have consulted with Derek, my mother said, standing beside my father with her chin raised. We have come to a decision that is fair for everyone. My father held up the papers. Since you refused to let us stay with you, we have decided that you should sign over your house to us. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Surely, this was some kind of sick joke, but his face was completely serious. My mother nodded in agreement. Derek stood behind them, his arms crossed, watching me. You want me to give you my house? I said slowly, making sure I understood. Yes, my father said simply. We need a place to live. This house is small and modest. You are young and capable. You can find an apartment, start over. We cannot. We need stability. I actually laughed. It came out harsh and bitter, but I could not help it. You are insane. This is my house. I worked for 6 years to save for it. I have a mortgage. I have built my life here. We gave you life, my mother said, her voice shaking with emotion. We raised you for 18 years. We fed you, clothed you, paid for your needs. This house is nothing compared to what we gave you. You owe us this. Derek finally spoke up, his voice carrying that smug tone I had grown to hate. Come on, Louis. You always were good at starting over. You can do it again. Mom and Dad need this more than you do. I looked at the 3 of them standing in my yard, my family, and felt something break inside me. Not break in a way that made me collapse, but break in a way that set me free. "No," I said. "This is insane. I'm not signing anything. This house is mine, and it is staying mine. You made your choices. You gave Derek everything. That was your decision. Now you live with it." My father's face turned that deep shade of red I had seen before. His jaw clenched, and his eyes went cold. "How dare you disrespect me like this? How dare you turn your back on your own parents?" "I am not turning my back," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I am protecting what I have built." "There is a difference." My mother started crying again, the same loud sobs from before. "We have nowhere to go, Louis. Derek's house is too far from our friends, from our community. We need to be in this neighborhood. Why are you being so cruel?" "Derek's house has 4 bedrooms," I said. "Why cannot you stay with him?" "That is Derek's house," my father snapped. "We gave it to him. We are not going to impose on him." The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. They could not impose on Derek, but they had no problem demanding I hand over my entire home. "Get off my property," I said. "I am not discussing this anymore." My father took a step closer to me. He was taller than me by a few inches, and he used that height now, looming over me. "You are going to sign these papers, Louis. You are going to do the right thing." "No, I am not." He shoved the papers toward my chest. I stepped back. Neighbors were coming outside again. I could see Bill across the street standing in his doorway. The couple next door was in their yard with their dog. "Sign them," my father shouted. "No, you ungrateful, selfish." And then his hand came up and cracked across my face so hard that I stumbled sideways. The sound echoed down the street like a gunshot. My cheek exploded in pain. I tasted blood immediately, a cut inside my mouth from where my teeth had scraped against my cheek. Everything went silent. I straightened up slowly, my hand going to my face. I could feel it already swelling. My mother was still crying. My father's hand was still raised, his chest heaving. And Derek was holding up his phone, recording everything, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Amanda came running out of the house, screaming, "What did you just do? What is wrong with you?" She put herself between me and my father, her face furious. "Get away from him. Get away right now." My father lowered his hand. "He is being dramatic. He deserved you hit him," Amanda screamed. "You assaulted him. In front of everyone." Neighbors were definitely watching now. Some had come out onto the street. I saw someone across the street holding up their phone, too. I tasted the blood in my mouth and swallowed it. My face throbbed, but I felt strangely calm, like something had crystallized inside me. "Get off my property right now," I said quietly, "or I am calling the police." My father raised his hand again, and I did not flinch. I just stared at him. Amanda stepped closer to me, her phone already out. "I am calling 911 right now if you do not leave," she said. My mother grabbed my father's arm. "Robert, come on, let us go." Derek was still filming, still smirking. My father glared at me for another long moment, then turned and stalked back to the car. My mother followed, but she turned back and pointed at me. "You are dead to us," she said. "You hear me? Dead to us." They got in the car. Derek climbed into the back seat, still holding his phone up. The tires squealed as they pulled away, leaving black marks on the street. I stood there in my front yard, shaking, my face on fire with pain, blood in my mouth. Amanda wrapped her arms around me, and I could feel her trembling too. Bill from across the street came walking over. "Son, I saw the whole thing. That was assault. You need to call the police." I nodded slowly. Amanda was already pulling me toward the house. As we walked inside, I looked back at my yard, at the rake lying in the leaves, at the peaceful Saturday morning that had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. Inside, Amanda got me ice for my face and helped me rinse my mouth. She took photos of the bruise that was already forming, the cut inside my mouth. Then she called the police, and I sat on the couch, holding ice to my face, and waited for them to arrive. That slap changed everything. Not because of the physical pain, though that was real, but because it made me see with absolute clarity that my parents did not love me. They wanted to use me, and when I refused to be used, They resorted to violence. I was done protecting them. I was done making excuses. It was time to protect myself. The police arrived 40 minutes after Amanda called. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both professional and calm. They took my statement, photographed my face, looked at the pictures Amanda had taken right after the slap. Bill came over and gave his statement as a witness. So did the couple next door. The female officer asked if I wanted to press charges. Yes, I said without hesitation. They filed a report for assault. They told me I could get a restraining order if I wanted one. I said I would think about it. After they left, Amanda and I sat in the living room in silence for a long time. My face ached. My heart ached worse. You need to talk to a lawyer, Amanda finally said. Not just about the assault, about everything. Something is not right with this whole situation. She was right. I had been so focused on defending myself that I had not stopped to think about the bigger picture. Why were my parents so desperate? They had $150,000. That was enough to rent a nice place while they looked for something to buy. Why the urgency? Why the aggression? The next day was Sunday. I did not go to church, which I usually did. I could not face people with my bruised face. Instead, I spent the day researching family lawyers in Portland. Amanda helped me, and we made a list of 5 possibilities. On Monday morning, I called in sick to work. I could not concentrate, and I needed to deal with this. I called the first lawyer on my list, but they were not taking new clients. The second one had a 3-week wait for a consultation. The third one listened to my basic story and said it was not really their area. The fourth call was to a lawyer named Patricia Hayes. Her secretary answered, and I started to give my basic story, expecting another rejection. Instead, the secretary put me on hold for 2 minutes, then came back and said Patricia could see me that afternoon at 3. I drove downtown to a small office building and took the elevator to the 4th floor. Patricia Hayes was a woman in her mid-50s with short gray hair, sharp eyes, and a no-nonsense handshake. Her office was lined with law books and had a large window overlooking the city. I told her everything: the unequal treatment growing up, the house sale, the $900,000 gift to Derek, the demand that I house my parents, the demand that I sign over my house, and finally, the slap. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and studied me for a moment. "Have you always been the responsible one?" she asked. "Yes, and your brother has always been the favorite." "Yes." She nodded like this confirmed something she already knew. Family dynamics like this are not uncommon, but this situation has some red flags that go beyond typical favoritism. "What do you mean?" "Your parents sold a house worth over $1 million and gave almost all of it to one child within a matter of months. Then they immediately became desperate for housing to the point of violence. That does not make sense. People do not go from having $1 million to being desperate in 2 months unless something else is going on. I had not thought of it that way. What could be going on? I do not know yet, but I would like to find out. Do you know anything about your parents' financial situation, debts, legal issues, anything like that?" I shook my head. They never talked about money with me. I always assumed they were doing fine. Patricia tapped her pen on her notepad. "I would like to do some research. Run some background checks. Look into public records. Would you be comfortable with that?" "Yes. Whatever you need to do. It will cost you. My hourly rate is $300, and research takes time." I thought about my savings, about the raise I had just gotten. "I want to know the truth. Whatever it costs." She smiled, the first time I had seen her expression soften. "Good. Give me a week. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you file for a restraining order against all 3 of them. Based on what you have told me in the police report, you should have no problem getting one." I left her office feeling something I had not felt in weeks. Hope. Not hope that my family would magically become functional, but hope that I would finally understand what was really happening. Over the next week, I went back to work, but my mind was constantly elsewhere. My face healed slowly, the bruise fading from purple to yellow-green. I filed for a restraining order on Wednesday, and the hearing was scheduled for the following week. Amanda came with me to court, and the judge granted a temporary restraining order prohibiting my parents and Derek from contacting me or coming within 100 feet of my home or workplace. Derek had been calling me non-stop, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading. I did not listen to most of them. I blocked his number after the restraining order was granted. On Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after my meeting with Patricia, she called me. "Louis, can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I found something, and we need to talk about it in person." Her voice had an urgency that made my stomach clench. "What did you find?" "Tomorrow, 10 in the morning. Trust me, you want to hear this sitting down." I barely slept that night. Amanda and I lay in bed, both of us staring at the ceiling, wondering what Patricia had discovered. At 9 the next morning, we drove downtown together. Amanda waited in the lobby while I went up to Patricia's office. She had papers spread across her desk and her computer screen open to several tabs. She gestured for me to sit. "Louis, your parents are in serious trouble. Legal trouble." My heart started pounding. "What kind of trouble?" She turned her computer screen toward me. It showed a federal court website with a case listing. United States of America versus Robert and Susan Brennan. The IRS has filed a lawsuit against your parents for unpaid taxes going back 7 years. With penalties and interest, they owe $278,000. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. What? It gets worse. The family home sale was not voluntary. The IRS had placed a federal tax lien on the property. They were about to seize it. Your parents sold it quickly to get the cash before the government could take it. I could not breathe. They owe almost $300,000. Yes, and here is the really problematic part. By giving $900,000 to Derek immediately after selling the house, while knowing they owed this money to the IRS, they committed what is called fraudulent transfer. They were trying to hide assets from the government. Can they do that? Can the IRS take Derek's house? Patricia nodded grimly. Yes, the IRS can reverse fraudulent transfers. Derek could lose that house, and your parents could face criminal charges for fraud. I sat back in my chair, my mind reeling. Everything suddenly made sense. The desperation, the aggression. They were not just looking for a place to live. They were running from a financial disaster of their own making. "When did the IRS file the lawsuit?" I asked. Patricia checked her papers. 3 weeks ago. Right around the time they came to your house with suitcases. 3 weeks ago. Right before they tried to move in with me. They knew the walls were closing in. "There is more," Patricia said. I pulled their credit reports. They have $60,000 in credit card debt across 7 different cards, and I found records showing they had been living off those credit cards for at least 2 years while not paying their taxes. I put my head in my hands. My parents had been lying to everyone, including themselves, for years. They had built a house of cards, and when it collapsed, they tried to drag me down with them. "What should I do?" I asked. "Nothing," Patricia said firmly. "You did nothing wrong. You are not responsible for their choices, but you should know that when the IRS investigation gets deeper, they might contact you. Be honest with them. Tell them you knew nothing about any of this." I drove home in a daze. Amanda asked me what happened, and I told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, then said, "They tried to ruin you to save themselves." That was exactly right, and if I had given in, if I had let them move in or somehow signed over my house, I would have been tangled up in their mess. The restraining order had probably saved me from much worse. That night, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Louis Brennan?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, this is Agent William Turner with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I need to speak with you about your parents, Robert and Susan Brennan." My hands started shaking. "Okay, can you come to my office on Monday morning? I have some questions for you." I agreed and wrote down the address. When I hung up, Amanda looked at me with wide eyes. "The IRS wants to talk to me," I said. She grabbed my hand. "You have done nothing wrong. Just tell them the truth." I nodded. But as I sat there that Saturday night, I realized this was far from over. My parents had created a disaster, and now I was going to have to walk through it and prove I was not part of it. The worst part was, I still had not heard from them directly. No apology, no explanation, just silence and the wreckage they had left behind. Monday morning, I put on my best suit and drove to the federal building downtown. Amanda offered to come with me, but I said I needed to do this alone. Patricia had coached me over the phone Sunday night. Tell the truth. Do not speculate. Do not try to protect anyone. Just be honest. The IRS office was sterile and quiet. All fluorescent lights and gray carpet. Agent William Turner was a man in his early 40s with a neat appearance and a calm demeanor that immediately put me at ease. He shook my hand and led me to a small conference room. "Thank you for coming in, Louis," he said. "I want to start by saying you are not under investigation. We just need to ask you some questions about your parents and your brother." "Okay," I said, my mouth dry. He opened a folder and pulled out several documents. "How much did you know about your parents' financial situation?" "Nothing," I said honestly. "They never discussed money with me. I did not know about any tax debt until my lawyer told me last week." He made a note. "Did you know they were planning to sell their house?" "Not until they told me at dinner about 6 weeks ago. They said it was because they were downsizing." "Did you know they were planning to give your brother $900,000? "No. They told me that at the same dinner." It was a complete shock. Agent Turner nodded and asked me to walk him through everything that had happened. I told him about the dinner, the demands that I house them, the demands that I sign over my house, the slap. I told him I had filed a police report and gotten a restraining order. Then he asked a question that made my blood run cold. "Louis, did your parents ever ask you to hold property or money for them? Did they ever suggest putting anything in your name?" "No." "Why?" He hesitated, then slid a piece of paper across the table. It was an email printout, from my father's email address to someone I did not recognize. The date was 3 weeks ago. I read it, and my stomach turned to ice. The email claimed that I was part of a plan to help my parents shelter assets. It said I had agreed to hold property for them through a shell arrangement. It was a complete lie, but there it was in writing. "They tried to implicate me," I said, my voice shaking. "They tried to make it look like I was helping them hide money." Agent Turner took the paper back. "We investigated you thoroughly, Louis. We pulled your financial records, your tax returns, everything. You are completely clean. You have filed your taxes properly, you have no unusual financial activity, and you have no connections to any shell companies or hidden accounts. You are not part of this." I felt relief and rage at the same time. Relief that I was cleared. Rage that my own parents had tried to throw me under the bus to save themselves. "Why would they do that?" I asked. "Desperation," Agent Turner said simply. "When people are facing serious legal consequences, they sometimes try to spread the blame, create confusion, make it look like other people were involved. It rarely works." He asked me a few more questions, then thanked me for my cooperation. "You might be called to testify if this goes to trial. Are you willing to do that?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I will tell the truth about everything." As I left the federal building, I felt exhausted, but also strangely free. My parents had tried to destroy me to save themselves, and it had not worked. The truth was coming out. Over the next 2 weeks, the situation escalated quickly. Patricia kept me updated on everything she learned through public records and legal filings. The IRS formally moved to reverse the transfer of Derek's house, claiming it was a fraudulent conveyance made to avoid paying debts. Derek hired a lawyer to fight it, but Patricia said he had almost no chance of winning. The house had been purchased with money that should have gone to the IRS while my parents were under investigation. My parents were formally charged with multiple counts of tax evasion and fraud. Each count carried potential prison time, though Patricia said first-time offenders often got probation if they cooperated. Derek called me dozens of times from different numbers. I did not answer. He left voicemails ranging from angry accusations to desperate pleas. In one message, he actually blamed me for everything, saying if I had just helped them, none of this would have happened. I saved that voicemail and forwarded it to Patricia. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks after my meeting with Agent Turner, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my mother. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Louis, please. Please, you have to help us. We are going to lose everything. Your father could go to prison. Please." I sat in my truck in the parking lot of a job site, listening to her sob. "Mom, I cannot help you. You created this situation. We made mistakes, but we are your parents. You cannot just abandon us. You tried to take my house. Dad hit me. You tried to blame me for your crimes. We were desperate, she screamed. Can you not understand that? We were losing everything. So you decided to destroy me too. She was silent for a moment, then her voice turned cold. You are going to regret this, Louis. When your father and I are in prison, when our lives are ruined, you are going to live with that guilt forever. No, Mom, I am not. You did this to yourselves. I hung up and blocked that number too. That night, Amanda held me while I cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because I felt guilty, but because I was grieving. I was grieving the parents I wished I had, the family I never got to have. You are a good person, Amanda whispered. You did the right thing at every step. This is not your fault. I knew she was right. But knowing it and feeling it were still two different things. The legal process moved slowly, like all legal processes do, but the outcome became clearer with each passing week. Patricia kept me informed of every development. Derek lost his house. The judge ruled that the transfer was indeed fraudulent and reversed it. The IRS took possession of the property and planned to auction it to recover some of the money my parents owed. Derek had to move out within 30 days. My parents tried to fight the charges, but their lawyer apparently told them they had no real defense. The evidence was overwhelming. They had not paid taxes for 7 years while living beyond their means. They had sold their house to avoid seizure. They had tried to hide assets by transferring money to Derek, and they had lied to federal investigators. Their lawyer negotiated a plea deal, 5 years of probation for both of them, 800 hours of community service each, mandatory financial counseling, and a repayment plan to the IRS that would be monitored by the court. They would have to make monthly payments for the next 15 years. They would also be banned from making any large financial transactions without court approval during their probation. It was not prison, but it was serious consequences. Their financial lives would be under a microscope for years. Patricia called me the day the plea deal was finalized. It is over, Louis. They took the deal. You will not have to testify. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you, Patricia, for everything. You did the hard part. You stood your ground when it mattered. Derek tried to contact me one more time after he lost the house. He sent me a long email that I almost did not read, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was different from his previous messages. There was no anger, no blame, just a strange kind of defeated honesty. He wrote that losing everything had forced him to look at his life clearly for the first time. He realized how entitled he had been, how much our parents had enabled him, how little he had actually accomplished on his own. He was moving into a small one-bedroom apartment and had gotten a job in warehouse logistics that he actually planned to keep. He said he did not expect me to forgive him or want a relationship, but he wanted me to know that he finally understood what I had been trying to tell them all along. I did not respond to the email, but I saved it. As fall turned to winter, my life settled into a new normal. The restraining order remained in place. I heard nothing from my parents. Patricia told me they were living in a modest rental house on the outskirts of town, both working part-time jobs to make their payment plan work. Work continued to go well. I led my team through a successful completion of the downtown renovation, and Gary started talking seriously about partnership possibilities. Amanda and I moved forward with our wedding plans, setting a date for the following spring. In early December, I picked up the engagement ring from the jeweler. It was perfect. Exactly what Amanda had loved when we looked at it together. I planned to propose on Christmas Eve, but something unexpected happened a week before Christmas. I was at my work site, reviewing blueprints with my crew, when I looked up and saw Derek standing near the entrance. He was wearing a work jacket and jeans, looking tired but somehow more solid than I had ever seen him. "Louis," he called out. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes." I told my crew to take a break and walked over to Derek slowly, my guard up. "What do you want?" I asked. "Just to say something. Then I will leave you alone." We walked to my truck and sat inside it, out of the cold wind. Derek looked at his hands, then at me. "I am not here to ask for anything. I am not here to make excuses. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. Really, truly sorry." I waited, saying nothing. I lost everything. and it was the best thing that ever happened to me," he continued. "I know that sounds crazy, but it is true. I have a real job now. I pay my own rent. I buy my own food. I have been at the warehouse for 2 months, and I actually like it. I am good at it. My boss says I am up for a promotion to shift supervisor. Good for you," I said neutrally. "I finally get it, Louis. What you were trying to show all of us. That real self-respect comes from what you build yourself, not what someone gives you. That house was not really mine. I did not earn it. And when it was gone, I had nothing. No skills, no work ethic, nothing." He looked at me with something I had never seen in his eyes before: humility. "You tried to protect yourself from us, and you were right to do it. We were toxic. I was toxic. I am trying to be better now. I do not expect you to forgive me or want me in your life. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand." I sat there for a long moment, processing this. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt, but another part of me, the part that still remembered Derek as my little brother before everything went wrong, felt something shift. "I appreciate you telling me this," I said finally. "But I need time, a lot of time." "I understand," Derek said. He reached for the door handle, then paused. "For what it is worth, I am proud of you. For standing your ground. For not letting us drag you down. You are everything I should have tried to be." He got out of the truck and walked away. I sat there watching him go, feeling emotions I could not quite name. I was not ready to have a relationship with him. Maybe I never would be, but something in me acknowledged that people can change, even when you least expect it. I drove home that evening and told Amanda what happened. She listened, then asked how I felt. "I do not know yet," I admitted, "but I think I believe him. That does not mean you have to let him back into your life," she said gently. "I know, but maybe someday. Not now, but someday." She kissed my forehead. "You have the biggest heart of anyone I know. Whatever you decide, I support you." Christmas came, bright and cold. On Christmas Eve, I took Amanda to the waterfront where we had gone on our first date. The city lights reflected on the river, and I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. She said yes, laughing and crying at the same time. We stood there by the river, holding each other, and I felt complete in a way I never had before. My family had tried to take everything from me, but I had held on to what mattered most: my integrity, my home, my future. And in protecting those things, I had built something real and lasting. 6 months after the slap that changed everything, I stood on my back deck on a warm June evening, watching Amanda water the flowers we had planted together that spring. The yard looked beautiful. We had put in raised garden beds, planted tomatoes and peppers and herbs, and hung string lights from the deck that made everything glow softly in the evening. Inside the house, wedding invitations sat on the dining room table, ready to be mailed. Our wedding was 3 months away, planned for September at a small vineyard outside the city. 40 guests, nothing fancy, just the people who really mattered to us. Work had continued to flourish. Gary had made it official 2 months ago. I was being brought on as a junior partner in the company. It came with a significant raise and equity stake. At 33 years old, I had achieved something I had only dreamed about. The house that my parents had tried to take from me was now worth more than I had paid for it. The neighborhood was improving, and property values had risen. But more than the financial value, this house represented something deeper. It was proof that I could build something stable and lasting through my own effort and determination. I had not heard from my parents in 6 months. The restraining order was still in place. According to Patricia, who kept loose tabs on the situation, they were complying with their probation terms. They worked, they made their payments, they attended their financial counseling, but they had made no attempt to reach out to me, and I had made no attempt to reach out to them. I did not know if I ever would. Some relationships, I had learned, are too broken to fix, and that was okay. It did not make me a bad person to protect myself from people who had tried to harm me, even if those people were my parents. Derek was a different story. About a month after our conversation in my truck, he had sent me a short text, just checking in. "Hope you are doing well. I have been promoted to shift supervisor. taking some night classes in logistics management. I had not responded immediately. I sat with it for a few days, talked to Amanda about it, talked to my therapist about it. Yes, I had started seeing a therapist in January. Best decision I had ever made. She had helped me process the trauma of what my family had put me through and had given me tools to set healthy boundaries. After 3 days, I texted Derek back. Good for you. Keep it up. It was not much, but it was something. A tiny opening, not to rebuild what we had lost, but to maybe build something new and healthier someday. We texted occasionally now, once every few weeks, brief updates. He told me about his job, about the classes he was taking, about how he was saving money for the first time in his life. I told him about work, about the wedding plans. The conversations were surface level, cautious, but civil. I was not ready for more than that. Maybe I never would be. But I was open to the possibility that Derek was genuinely changing, and that was enough for now. On this particular June evening, Amanda came up onto the deck and sat beside me on the bench we had built together. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How different my life is now compared to 6 months ago." Different how? Clearer, stronger, more honest. She took my hand. "You did that. You made those changes by standing up for yourself." I thought about the slap, about the taste of blood, about the moment I had decided I would not be moved. "Do you think I did the right thing?" Refusing to help them. Amanda sat up and looked at me directly. "Louis, they did not ask you for help. They demanded you sacrifice yourself. There is a difference. Helping someone means supporting them while they solve their own problems. What they wanted was for you to become their solution, to give up everything you had worked for so they would not have to face the consequences of their choices." She was right, as she usually was. I just wish it had not had to be so painful. I know, but pain is not always a sign you did something wrong. Sometimes pain is the cost of doing what is right. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the evening sounds of the neighborhood, kids playing in a yard down the street, a dog barking, someone mowing their lawn even though it was almost 7 o'clock. "Do you think you will ever have a relationship with your parents again?" Amanda asked quietly. "I do not know. Right now, I cannot imagine it. They never apologized. They never acknowledged what they did wrong. Until that changes, I do not see how we could have anything healthy. And you are okay with that. I am learning to be." The truth was, I was more than okay. For the first time in my life, I was not carrying the weight of my family's dysfunction. I was not trying to prove my worth or earn love that should have been freely given. I was just living my life, building my future, choosing the people who would be part of it. A week later, something unexpected arrived in my mailbox. A letter, handwritten, from my mother. I almost threw it away without reading it, but Amanda convinced me to at least see what it said. I opened it carefully, my heart pounding. The letter was short. My mother wrote that she and my father were in counseling, both individual and marriage counseling. She said they were starting to understand the damage they had caused, not just to me but to Derek as well. She said she was not asking for forgiveness or for a relationship, but she wanted me to know that she was sorry. Really, truly sorry for trying to take my house, for enabling the situation that led to my father hitting me, for trying to blame me for their legal troubles. She wrote, "You deserved better parents than we were. You deserved to be seen and valued and supported. We failed you in fundamental ways, and I am beginning to understand that now. You owe us nothing. But I wanted you to know that I see what we did. I see it clearly now, and I am sorry." The letter ended simply, "I hope you have a beautiful life, Louis. You have earned it." I sat on my couch reading that letter 3 times. I felt tears on my face, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of something like closure. My mother had finally acknowledged the truth. She had not asked for anything in return. She had just told the truth. I showed the letter to Amanda. She read it and looked at me. "How do you feel?" "I do not know. Relieved, maybe? It does not change anything, but it helps to know she finally sees it." "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for a long time. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I am going to keep the letter. I filed it away in a drawer with other important documents. A piece of evidence that transformation was possible. even if it came too late. As summer progressed, my life continued to move forward. Amanda and I finalized our wedding plans. We picked out flowers, chose a caterer, finalized the guest list. My boss Gary was walking me down the aisle since my father would not be there. Amanda's father had passed away years ago, so her uncle was walking her down. At work, I took on more responsibility as a junior partner. I was involved in bidding on new projects, managing client relationships, and mentoring younger project managers. I loved the challenge of it. In late August, a month before the wedding, I was working late at the office when my phone rang. Unknown number. I had learned to answer these calls because sometimes they were work-related. Louis Brennan, I answered. Louis, it is Derek. Hey, I said, surprised. We usually just texted. I wanted to call because I have something to tell you, and I wanted you to hear it from me. My stomach clenched. What is going on? Mom and Dad are moving. They are leaving Portland, going to Arizona to be near Mom's sister. They think a fresh start will be good for them, away from all the people who know what happened. I processed this. My parents leaving. Part of me felt relief. Part of me felt something else. Something I could not quite name. How do you feel about it? I asked. Honestly, I think it is good for them. And for me. I have been seeing them once a month for supervised visits with their counselor. It has been helpful, but it is also hard. Some distance might be healthy for everyone. Are you going with them? No, I am staying here. I have a good job, a good apartment. I am building something for myself. I do not want to start over again. I smiled despite myself. Good for you, Derek. I wanted to ask you something, he said, his voice uncertain. What? Your wedding is next month. I saw the date on social media. I am not asking for an invitation. I know I do not deserve that, but I wanted you to know that I am happy for you. Really happy. Amanda seems great, and you deserve every good thing. I felt emotion rise in my throat. Thank you. That means a lot. Maybe someday, when enough time has passed, we could get coffee or something. Just to talk, as adults, not as the messed up kids we used to be. Maybe, I said, and I meant it. Let me get through the wedding and get settled. Then maybe we can try that. Okay, that is all I wanted. Take care, Louis. You too, Derek. After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, looking out at the city lights. My little brother was growing up. My parents were leaving. The chapter of my life that had been defined by their dysfunction was finally, truly closing. The wedding was perfect, small and intimate, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us. Amanda was so beautiful I could barely speak when I saw her walking down the aisle. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to be partners, to support each other's growth, to build a life based on honesty and respect. Gary gave a toast that made me cry. He talked about watching me grow from a laborer to a project manager to a partner, about my integrity and work ethic, about how proud he was to work with me. Amanda's best friend gave a toast about our relationship, about how we had weathered difficult times and come out stronger. At the end of the night, Amanda and I stood outside the venue, under the stars, her in her wedding dress, me in my suit, and we just held each other. We did it, she whispered. Yeah, we did. I am so proud of you. Of everything you have overcome to get here. I could not have done it without you. Yes, you could have. But I am glad you did not have to. We honeymooned in Hawaii for a week, disconnecting from everything. When we came back, we settled into married life. We painted the guest bedroom, talked about starting a family in a year or two, planned weekend trips to the coast. Life was not perfect. I still had moments of sadness about my family. I still had to work through pain and anger in therapy. But those moments were becoming less frequent, less intense. One evening in early October, exactly a year after the slap, I found myself standing in my driveway again. But this time, it was different. I was holding a rake, clearing leaves just like I had been that awful Saturday morning. But Amanda was beside me, laughing as she jumped into the pile I had just made. Our neighbor Bill waved from across the street. The couple next door stopped to chat about their new puppy. This was my life now. This was what I had protected when I refused to give in. Not just a house, but a home. Not just a relationship, but a partnership. Not just a job, but a career. Not just survival, but a life worth living. I had learned the hardest lesson, that sometimes love means saying no, that boundaries are not walls but foundations, that you cannot save people from themselves, but you can save yourself from being pulled under with them. My parents tried to take everything from me, but in refusing to let them, I discovered what I was truly made of. I discovered that I was stronger than I knew, that I deserved better than I had been taught to accept, that my worth was not determined by their approval. Standing in my driveway that October evening, the anniversary of my father's slap, I touched my cheek where the bruise had been. It had healed completely, leaving no scar, but the memory remained, not as a wound but as a reminder that I had stood my ground, that I had chosen myself, that I had refused to be destroyed. And in that refusal, I had found freedom. Amanda called from the porch. Dinner is almost ready. I dropped the rake and walked toward my house, toward my wife, toward my future. The autumn air was crisp and clean. The lights inside my home glowed warm and welcoming. This was what I had fought for. This was what I had protected. This was mine, and no one could ever take it from me again. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family, even when it felt wrong? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is struggling with the same decision. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming difficult family situations. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect themselves, even from the people who are supposed to love them most. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gave you something to think about, maybe even some courage if you are facing a similar situation. Remember, you are not selfish for having boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting what you have built. And you are not alone. Take care of yourselves out there. Build lives you are proud of. And never let anyone convince you that your worth is measured by your willingness to sacrifice yourself for their mistakes. Until next time.